Welcome to episode 12 of the podcast. I know so many of you have been looking forward to this episode. This has been one of the most requested topics. So in today's episode, we're going to go over what foundations you need in your kit when you're starting as a makeup artist. I'm going to walk you through the different types of foundations you're going to need to have, and also how to set yourself up for success so you're able to do the job that you're hired to do, and you're able to show up with a full kit to be able to work on anyone without breaking the bank. Closer to the end of the episode, I'll share some of the foundations that I use and why, and I hope that will make things clear in terms of what you need to stock your kit with and the textures and finishes you need to make sure you have. One thing I did want to mention before we get into the episode, I think it's safe to say that complexion products are probably going to be one of the more expensive areas of your kit. They're going to be right up there with makeup brushes. I think complexion is an area you really don't want to skimp out on. I talk to a lot of makeup artists, and it seems to me that this is an area that people are hesitant to invest in, and I actually think that is a huge mistake, and let me explain why. I want you to make the best impression on your clients with every opportunity that you're given. When you're first starting out, you have very few opportunities to build your reputation, and your reputation in the industry is one of the things that is critical to building a successful career and also building a career quickly. When you decide to work as a makeup artist and you come into this industry, immediately you are stepping into the ring with people that have been doing this for a very long time. This doesn't mean that you don't belong. This doesn't mean that you do not deserve an opportunity. It doesn't mean that other people were not once at this place. It just means that you really need to step up to the plate in order to make sure that you look as professional as everybody else and assimilate into the industry as fast as possible, because many of the people that sit in your chair, they're not going to be able to tell how much experience you have just by looking. And this is an important thing to remember. If you show up with a clean and fully stocked kit and you're able to do good work on any skin tone, this is half the battle. You're already going to be in your client's good books, and if this comes at a cost of a few extra bottles of foundations or a palette or two more, this is an excellent return on investment. And that is really one of the underlying themes of what I'm trying to do with Artist to Artist. I want you to reach your full potential. I want you to take advantage of every opportunity, and I want you to have the best chance at succeeding as a makeup artist. So if you step into a job with a proper kit and you're able to do the work that you're hired to do, that's already going to give people a really great impression of you, because we don't need to submit a resume to do the job. A lot of us don't even need to graduate from school to call ourselves a makeup artist and to be paid to work as a makeup artist. For me, the dead giveaway of a new makeup artist is someone that does not have a fully stocked kit and cannot work on all skin tones. And my thought is that when you have so many foundations now available in every skin tone, in palette form, in liquid form, you can order these foundations to your house in a couple hours on Instacart if you needed to. How could you not show up to a job with whatever you need when it comes to complexion products? And I also feel like people shouldn't be taking on jobs if they can't meet this single responsibility as an artist. The other thing about not being able to match a foundation, I will tell you, is that photographers, of course, will notice, but also the models that you work on, when their foundation is not matched properly, that type of information gets spread around the industry very quickly, and it can be very detrimental to your reputation. And this is something that people do not forget easily or quickly. Our responsibilities as pro artists, meaning what our job descriptions are when people hire us, what they are expecting, regardless of who the client is, whether it's someone who's getting married, whether it's a producer booking you for a commercial, it is your responsibility to have a kit that is stocked with foundations for every skin tone, and that is a bare minimum requirement of our job. Regardless of where in the world you live, you must equip yourself with the knowledge to be able to mix and adjust a foundation for every skin tone, and this also means having the products in your kit to do so. And you really do not have to overthink this or panic about this if this is making you uncomfortable right now. It's just all about color. That's what our job is about, color theory. There's a little cosmetic chemistry mixed in there, which we will talk about, but our job is just about color. It's as simple as that. And this is why I'm always going on and on about color theory. This is why I have a masterclass on color theory. This is why I did a signature course on color theory, because this knowledge is the foundation of what we do. As far as how color theory relates to what foundations you need in your kit, if you're stronger in color theory, you'll need to spend less money on foundations and you'll need fewer shades. And if you're not as strong at the beginning, that is okay. You will just need to make sure that you are really stocked with foundations for different undertones. So you're going to have to spend more money to make up for that. First, let's talk about what makes sense when you're beginning your career as a makeup artist. And this is something I think is hard to remember. It's hard to focus on because we are being overwhelmed on social media by so much advertising day in and day out. And there's so many products that are actually not pro artist friendly. So regardless of where you're at in your career, when it comes to stocking products for your kit, in this case, we're talking about foundation, please think about what is artist friendly. To me, artist friendly just means we're combining quality with accessibility, meaning it's something you can order or reorder easily because you want to be able to replenish without a lot of hassle. If you can take advantage of a pro discount, that also to me, of course, means pro friendly, a great shade selection, and also the packaging has to make sense so you're not paying a ton of extra money for depotting. A lot of artists who are first starting, especially if you're self-taught like I am, you're not going to have access to pro discounts right away. And this doesn't mean that you should not be looking at pro stores, because pro stores carry a lot of foundation palettes that are going to be the backbone of your complexion products in your kit when you're just getting started, or if you're kind of wondering where to start with your foundations. Going back to our job responsibilities, so yes, we need to make sure we can mix foundations for any skin tone. We also have to be versatile with the foundations in our kit, meaning we need to be able to create looks with different levels of coverage and different finishes. So when you're buying products for your kit or foundations for your kit, these are all things you have to keep top of mind. If you're someone that is making notes as you're listening to this episode, our requirements for our complexion part of our kits, full shade range, and foundations that are either themselves just sheer, medium, and full coverage, or foundations that you can manipulate and change the coverage of. If you're listening and you haven't bought a single palette or any foundations for your kit yet, head to a pro website like Camera Ready Cosmetics. If there's pro stores that are accessible to you, take a look at what they have if they're local in terms of the foundations they carry. I mentioned Camera Ready Cosmetics because I feel like this is one of the best curated sites for pro artists. I always go there just to see what products they're carrying. I trust their judgment when it comes to the brands that they're stocking. So even if you're not going to be ordering from there, just check it out anyways, because it'll give you a really good idea of brands that are more pro approved. I promise this podcast is not sponsored by Camera Ready Cosmetics, even though I wish it was because I really love that site. But definitely try to take a quick look at this before you buy anything, and try, of course, to support your local pro stores because often they're run by pros like me and you. One thing every artist I think needs, or you're definitely going to be needing if you're building your kit, is a foundation palette. And it could be one palette or two or three. It's really going to depend on your comfort level with color theory. The great thing about foundation palettes is that you get a variety of different shades to use. So these will really help you determine and narrow down which shades you use more of and which shades or undertones you don't use. This is something that is very hard to predict when you're first getting started. You can ask every makeup artist that you know or every makeup artist on social what their most used shades are, but you will find it is not universal, and very, very often what works for one person may not work for you. So it's best to start with a palette, and that will really tell you what you use and what you don't, and it's an inexpensive way to figure this all out. Palettes are also just great insurance for your kit, and what I mean by this is if you struggle with deeper skin tones, buy a few palettes that are made for deeper skin tones. This is a foolproof method. Oftentimes I will buy palettes, I may not dip into them very often, but just so I have them and I know the shades are there, just in case I don't have time to mix something and I need a very specific shade and I don't want to carry around a ton of heavy bottles of foundation, I will lean on my foundation palettes. It's really a foolproof method, and if you're not comfortable mixing and adjusting, you can have a wide range of foundations available, ready-made, that will probably not require any adjusting or may only require a little bit of adjusting, which is great if you're not strong in color theory, and this also is a time saver. Closer to the end of this episode, I will go through the foundations that I carry in my kit so you can get an idea of what I like. I'll also talk to you a little bit about the properties of those foundations, and hopefully by the end of this episode, that should leave you with a really good picture of what you need to stock your kit with. So start building your kit with those foundation palettes, and then pay attention to which shades you're using and which shades you're not using. Now, the thing with foundation palettes is that they are generally creamier textures, wax or oil based, so their consistency is going to be a little bit different from a liquid foundation, and how they apply and perform is also going to be different. And with different formulations, these things look different on camera. This doesn't mean because they're a cream foundation that they can't be used on different skin types. It just means that the foundations are going to act or behave in a specific way that is not the same as liquid foundation. So you will have to account for that with your skin prep. You may find foundation palettes, let's say the Makeup Forever HD palettes, the cream foundation. I find those go on the skin a little bit more shiny. So when I'm applying those, even if I have someone with, let's say, a normal or dry skin, I may use a mattifying powder on top because I may not need that shine on the skin. So that's what I mean by that. And these are things you're going to learn over time about the products in your kit. What this also means is that the ingredients are going to be different from a liquid foundation. So when it comes to your correctors or adjusters, you want to have correctors and adjusters that are going to mix well with the foundations in your kit. And one rule in mixing makeup or mixing foundations is that you always want to mix like with like. And what that means is that you want to mix the same bases of foundation together. So if you have a silicone-based foundation, you want to mix in a silicone-based adjuster, for example. For those of you that are listening and you're like, I have no clue what the base of my foundation is, I don't know if it's silicone-based, water-based, wax or oil-based, all you need to do is go to ChatGPT, copy and paste the foundation ingredients, and ask GPT to explain the ingredients to you in a very simple way. And you can ask ChatGPT what the base of this foundation is. You don't have to have a degree in cosmetic chemistry for this, and this will actually help you learn a little bit more about the ingredients in your foundation and how they perform and how they spread and if they may dry out. These are all things you can learn by just inputting the ingredient list into ChatGPT. So far, we've got foundation palettes that you will definitely want to have. I will list some of these and make sure all the products that I like and use are available to you in the show notes. Let's move on now to liquid foundations. And for me, I think it's important to have liquid foundations in your kit that have different properties. I like silicone-based foundations, which I find look really beautiful on the skin. They're very comfortable and light to wear. They're easy to work with, and they look really great on camera. I also think you would want to have a liquid foundation that is more indestructible, that are maybe waterproof, transfer resistant, and fuller coverage. You would have your cream foundations from your palettes, and these palettes are also a foolproof way to make sure your kit is stocked with a lot of different shades of foundation without breaking the bank. Then moving on to your liquids, you want to have something that is a silicone base, as I mentioned, and the silicone-based foundations are usually buildable coverage, and this will cover you off for your light to medium coverage. And then you'll want to have a liquid foundation that is fuller coverage and something that is going to be water resistant and transfer proof for those more extreme conditions. If you end up purchasing foundation from these three groupings, you will want to make sure you also have correctors and adjusters that mix with wax or oil-based foundations, depending on your cream palettes. And then you also want to have your silicone-based adjusters, which are going to mix in with most of the foundations that are made available on the market. They are usually silicone based. A lot of the ones that pros like are silicone based, and you can double check this in ChatGPT. Silicone based adjusters are not going to work well with water based foundations, so you may want to check what your foundations are if you already have in your kit so you know what to mix together. If you have foundations from each of these categories palette, then your silicone based liquid and your longer wear or fuller coverage option plus adjusters for each, you're going to be good to go. With the liquid foundations, you're going to be buying these in individual bottles, which is normal. They're obviously not suitable to be in a palette because of how they're made. So if you're stuck on what undertones to pick up, my suggestion is always, especially if you're completely new and you still don't have a lot of experience working with different undertones, I would say the easiest thing to do is purchase neutral undertones because these undertones are the easiest to adjust. This is a great approach to take until you figure out which undertones you use most often. And most brands now, when you click on the shade name or you look on one of the drop downs on Sephora, they will tell you what the undertone is so you can figure out which ones are more neutral. A lot of brands do this really well now, which is so helpful for us. And as far as how light or dark you want to go with the individual shades of liquid foundation you're going to be purchasing, if you are confident in your color theory and color adjusting, you can probably get away with 2, 3, or 4 shades from a brand's full range of foundation. You'll see some artists that will pick the lightest shade, a middle shade, and the deepest shade, and maybe there's one in between if you know a certain tone you use more often. And they do this because they're very confident with mixing. So if you're not confident in mixing and adjusting, you want to make sure that the individual shades that you're purchasing, they're not so far apart from one another in terms of how light or how dark they are, because unless you're confident with your color theory, mixing a very light foundation with a very dark foundation could give you a result you're not intending. So it'll be best for you to purchase more shades that are closer together. You do not need every single shade, and this would be better than only purchasing 2 or 3 shades from an entire range. Just so we're all on the same page, it's about color range, different formulations, and adjusters and correctors that work with the different formulations of the foundations in your kit. Now is probably a good point in this episode to run through what I carry in my kit. What I'm going to share in this list here, or what I'm talking about in this episode, is just more general things that I like and have used. What I do is I kind of cycle different things in and out of my kit depending on who my clients are. Because I've been doing this for quite a long time, and because I've had so much experience doing a lot of beauty focused shoots, I'm very, very tuned in to how the different foundations I use appear on camera. There's certain foundations I love for certain things, some foundations I don't love for certain things. So really depending on what I'm doing, I will always choose the foundation that is going to look the best. Now, I don't have a blueprint or formula for this or a checklist that I can pass on to you. It's really just my experience that has informed my choices. You will develop the same experience or intuition or whatever you want to call it with the foundations in your kit, and you'll just know based on your client or your model's skin or how the lighting is going to be, which foundations are suitable. So this all is going to come with experience, I promise you. And you learn this really only from actually doing the job. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. You'll pick this stuff up as you go. Let's start with the foundation palettes that I have in my kit. One of my favorite foundation palettes is, of course, RCMA. I think this is a great foundation. I'm actually planning an online class about this foundation because I do think it's versatile. Their shade range is unmatched, I would say. The pigmentation and quality of the foundation is amazing, and the palettes will not let you down. I always have a palette or 2 of RCMA in my kit. With this foundation, I can use it full strength, which means full coverage. I can also shear it down. So this foundation checks off a lot of boxes for me. Other great palettes of foundation that I have are Cinema Secrets. This also would check the box for me for a foundation that is more industrial strength, water resistant. It doesn't transfer as easily. So that foundation checks off 2 boxes for me. I also really love the MAC Full Coverage Foundation palette, and the Makeup Forever HD palettes are also amazing. I know the new Kryolan Digital Complexion Cream Foundation products are getting a lot of attention. I looked at them. I haven't purchased or tried them yet, but the color range in those palettes, especially the one that's double-sided, looks amazing. Graftobian, another selection of really great palettes. If you grabbed a couple of their palettes, you'd have a full shade range of foundations. And I think those would be some of my top picks for your kit. Of course, with the Pro Artist discount, these are going to be more affordable, but they're not crazy in price, even without the Pro discount. And with products like RCMA, because it is so pigmented, you need a very small amount to do a full face. So you'll get a lot of use out of that palette. As far as my liquids go, I carry, of course, Face Atelier foundation. You always hear me going on about that, which is a silicone-based foundation. This is one of my workhorse foundations, similar to RCMA. It's been in my kit just as long as RCMA, so since the beginning of time. I can make this foundation look like a second skin. I can use it as something that is very sheer. I can build up the coverage to get it to be a medium, almost full, not quite. The downside of this foundation, I feel, is that on deeper skin, because my personal preference is to use something fuller coverage, because the coverage from this brand is not that full, it is still more on the medium to light end of the spectrum. I prefer to supplement liquid foundations with a similar finish from other brands in deeper skin tones. And for me, examples of this would be the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. The deeper skin tone shades are amazing, and Makeup Forever HD. Just as a side note, for the deeper skin tones that I work with, I do prefer to use some of the heavier cream foundations like RCMA, MAC Full Coverage, Makeup Forever HD Cream, and I really, of course, like the Makeup Forever HD Liquid. The HD Liquid for me does triple duty in my kit because it acts as my full coverage option. It also acts as my industrial strength option in my kit, and it's great for deeper skin. So it's checking off a lot of boxes for me as well, and that's why I like it. One other foundation that I have to call out as a really sheer option that is multi-purpose is a product like the MAC Face and Body. You can use this on the face. It gives a second skin look, but also you can use this to make the body look great on camera as well. Let's do a little checklist of what we have so far. So our kits need to have a range of shades, textures, and finishes. You're going to have your palettes, which will often cover you off for your broader color range. You'll also get fuller coverage options here, and that's just because these foundations generally are fuller coverage. That's the nature of these products. Then you'll get into your liquid foundations, and you want to have liquid foundations that you can layer so you can build the coverage. You can start them sheer and layer them up. This is why I really love silicone-based foundations. A lot of silicone-based foundations like Face Atelier have film formers in them, which make them self-setting. So this is how you can layer them and build the coverage. You don't need to powder in between layers to build up the coverage, and this makes these foundations very versatile. And then you want to have your industrial strength option, which for me, Makeup Forever HD, Cinema Secrets would be great for this as well. And oftentimes the bonus of these more industrial strength foundations is that they're also going to cover you off for your deeper shades as well as your fuller coverage options. I hope I'm painting the picture for you here of what really makes a complete foundation kit, and one that is versatile and one that will set you up for success in any scenario. This combination of foundation, textures, and finishes is one that has worked for me. For those of you working in warmer climates all the time, let's say, or maybe you're someone that is constantly doing destination weddings in really hot climates, what you have in your kit may be slightly different. You may want to lean on more industrial strength options. You also want to have more foundations that are mattifying. All of the foundations that I mentioned, you can mattify them down with skin prep setting powder, but this can take a little bit of work. So if you do find you're in a situation where most of your clients need a mattifying foundation, then you will want to add that into your complexion kit as well. Obviously, I'm being very general. I am not going to be able to account for every market, every climate. This should be just a place for you to start, and then you can customize and tweak your complexion products as you go and as you get more experience. And as you find products that just make your life easier, you can add them in. One thing we have not touched on is kit optics, and that's just how your kit appears to clients that are sitting in your chair or people that you're working with. Now, it does help to have some more luxury brands and brands that are more widely available at Sephora, for example. Makeup Forever is kind of a great in-between product because clients know about it, but it's also pro-friendly. And there are really great foundations that are going viral, or foundations that you can get at Sephora that work really well. Things like Armani Luminous Silk, which is very similar to Face Atelier, by the way. House Lab, some of the Fenty foundations. NARS has some different formulations that are really nice. What you may want to do is sprinkle in a couple bottles here and there of more luxury foundations, or if you've been working with the same products all the time and maybe your whole kit is depotted, you may want to have some things that are visible to your clients so they recognize the brand. Clients do like to see these things, and of course, everyone's always judging you based on what you carry in your kit. So it's nice to have those luxury options, and it's nice to make them visible in your kit. Dior Face and Body is another example. Dior Skin Glow. You know, all of these great brands we hear about all the time. Maybe they're not brands that we can afford to buy 4 or 5 or 6 shades from, but maybe 1 or 2 we can do when there's a sale, or if we want to incorporate something that is recently trending, you can buy 1 or 2 bottles of your most used shades. That's what I mean when you think about kit optics and adding these options to your kit. My other suggestion when you're building your kit out is to try everything on yourself first, so you can really get an idea of how the products perform, how they best apply. If you're trying a new foundation where there is no pro discount attached, buy 1 or 2 bottles first to see if you even like it. Don't just show up and buy 6 bottles when you're not even sure if you like the foundation and go from there. Another fantastic option is that some stores now, I know Camera Ready Cosmetics does this, Mob Beauty does this, Versatility also does this. They have sample programs where you can buy samples of foundation for a couple of dollars. This is a great way to try different foundations, but it's also a great way to throw in some extra shades as a just in case. So if you're not confident with really fair skin or really deep skin, you may want to add a few more shades just in the sample size so you have the selection available in your kit. You're not breaking the bank and you're totally covered whatever job you show up to. This is also why I want to encourage you to support pro-friendly brands that do this, because our job is insanely expensive to do. And this is a great way to make sure you're holding up your end of the bargain with your clients, but you're not going to go bankrupt in the process. In the show notes, I'm going to share a bunch of links in the resources section with the foundations that I currently have in my kit, some recommendations for beginners, as well as links to the adjusters and correctors that I'm currently using. We have come to the end of this episode. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope you will subscribe if you have been enjoying listening to this podcast. And if there's another artist that you think this podcast would help, please pass this podcast along. Don't forget to follow Artist to Artist on Instagram, and I will talk to you next week. Enjoy the rest of your week.